You know what that means, though? It means... List maker. Here we go. I looked this up earlier today, and I realized that I had played a majority of these games. A quite vast majority of these games. So I figured, why not make a tier list? It'd be fun. It'd be a fun little Friday thing. Fuck it! Friday tier list, you know? What the fuck ever. Alright, here we go. Let's get the easy ones out of the way. You down? Let's get the easy ones out of the way. Alright? Look at my messy bed. I can't really... There we go. The easy one. Okay. Easy-wise, let's pop in some S's. Boom. S. Silent Hill 2 S rank. Like I said earlier today, favorite piece of media ever created. Also, wait a second. Let me exit this. Let me put on... Here, wait. Twan. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Silent Hill 2 easy S rank. It's, like I said, it's one of the fucking best pieces of things I've ever experienced in my life. Easy S. Another easy S rank. Where is it? The Resident Evil Remake. S tier. Almost absolute gaming perfection. Genuinely almost gaming perfection. In going with the flow of Resident Evil, I'm thinking, Resident Evil 2? Not remake, OG Resident Evil 2. Where's OG Resident Evil 2? OG Resident Evil 2? It's honestly flopping between A and S. Honestly flopping between A and S. Resident Evil 2, like, here, let me put this right here. Resident Evil 2, specifically the original one, is so good that if I were to eliminate Resident Evil Remake from... here, let me turn this down a little bit. This is really loud. If I were to eliminate Resident Evil Remake from, like, history, it's just gone. And it was just, you know, Resident Evil on the PS1, 2, 3, 4... 5, 6, whatever. I would easily put Resident Evil 2 Original in S rank. Without a single bit of hesitation. Because I think Resident Evil 2 is so good. But this is actually kind of difficult. Because I think Resident Evil, outside of the spectrum of things, Resident Evil 2 is arguably like the best one. In terms of, like, the classic games. I think everything that the original Resident Evil did, Resident Evil 2 did better. But I don't know if it's better than Resident Evil Remake. So I'm going to make a... can I make it... Can I add a row? Add a row below. S minus. Got it. S minus. S minus. There we go. There we go. It's going in S minus tier. I'm making a specific category for Resident Evil 2 because it's that good. But not quite good enough. Resident Evil... I think the only game that will be in S minus tier is Resident Evil 2. Okay? I think that will be the only game at the end of this list. Let me also get some games that I have not played out of the way. I have never played The Thing. I've never played Clock Tower 2. I've never played this. I've never played this. I've never played this or this. I've never played this. This. Dead Space 3 is not a horror game. Get the fuck out of here. S- sounds like an STD. Almost. S. How's that? I have played the original Dino Crisis, not any of the other ones. I'll get to that. Don't worry. I've not played this. I've not played Dino Crisis 2, the original Clock Tower, this game. I have played this game. 1 second. I've never even heard of Nightcry. I've not played Outlast 2 or any of the Alone in the Dark sequels. I've not played Final Frame 3. I've not played Parasite Eve 2. This doesn't count, but I'll put it here. This is some bullshit multiplayer horror game. Get the fuck out of here with this Alone in the Dark shit. This last Alone in the Dark game that came out. I've not played Fatal Frame 4. I've not played Jericho. I've heard Amy's good. I've not played this. I've not played Dying Light. I've not played this. I've not played Obscure. I've not played Machine for Pigs. Okay. I'm putting Cryostasis in F tier. You want to know why? Because that game doesn't work. I have tried multiple occasions to play Cryostasis, and that game is constantly crashing no matter what system, console, bullshit thing I am ever playing that game on. It just chooses not to work. So I'm putting Cryostasis in F tier. I haven't played Obscure 2, Siren 2. I've never even heard of this. I've not played the original Sweet Home or this. Never heard of this. I think I've played every other game on this list, though. All things considered, that's more than half of this that I've played. I feel like that's fair. I feel like that's a fair kind of thing to, like, start tier listing on. Cryostasis lives up to the name of never waking up. Yes, congratulations. You got it. I played every other game on this list, though. 100%. Oh, I take it back. I haven't played this game either. Or this. I played the original Evil Within, though. Okay. Silent Hill Downpour. There's a lot of things going into my decision on where Silent Hill Downpour goes, okay? The Silent Hill series at this point of Downpour being made was in shambles. It was the beginning of the end. And Downpour kind of came out of nowhere and was like, hey, we're a bunch of people that love Silent Hill. We're not fucking around. We're going to make this game the way the fans wanted. We're bringing back originality to the franchise. We're bringing back we're bringing new concepts to the franchise. We're bringing back things people know that Silent Hill is known for. We're bringing back atmosphere. We're bringing back exploration. We're bringing back limited combat. We're not bringing back Pyramid Head because Pyramid Head belongs specifically in Silent Hill 2. And I was like, yo, I'm down. And then I play the fucking game and it's an F. Fuck that game. Downpour sucks. It's a piece of shit. It's a bad game. Okay? It's not good. You want to know how not good Downpour is? Watch this. Homecoming, D. Homecoming is better than Downpour. I beat Homecoming. I beat Homecoming. I finished the game called Silent Hill Homecoming, and I never bothered to beat Downpour. That's how bad Downpour is. Good? Good. Cool. Done. On our way. Fatal Frame 1. I haven't beaten it, but it's a C. I have nothing inherently bad to say about Fatal Frame, apart from the fact that 1, it's just fine. It's completely fine. Homecoming, you know, in terms of what the franchise at that point was, yes, Homecoming does have... Homecoming has out of sync lip sync? I don't remember that. It's been a long time. But Fatal Frame... Here, wait. I feel like I have to keep turning this down. This is like background noise. Are we good right here? The OG Fatal Frame is just okay. Nothing to write home about. I am very happy that I have a copy on the PS2 that I got for $40 used. And let's find out what that copy is for now. eBay. Fatal Frame PS2. Oh, it's about the same. It's fine. All right, never mind. Whatever. It's gone. I'll get it later. Anyway, Fatal Frame's fine. It's whatever. Let's see. Stalker, Shadow of Chernobyl. I wouldn't really consider this like a straight up horror game. It almost doesn't belong. It's a really good game though. There's not a lot of frames I fataled. I fataled enough frames when it comes to judging Fatal Frame. I almost don't feel comfortable putting this on this tier list. You know, I'm gonna put it in D. I objectively don't think it's a bad game. I just don't think it's a good horror game, and it just doesn't speak to me. Stalker doesn't really hit me hard. This... Wait a second. What did I just do? Oh, Jesus Christ. Stalker isn't really a horror game, but I don't like the game it is. But it's objectively good. That's my official rating of Ghosts. Or of Stalker. Does that seem fair? Okay. Clive Barker Undying is... It's a D. I've put maybe like an hour into it. It's just... It's... The Resident Evil formula is a relic of older game design that I think still holds up magnificently. Clive Barker's Undying is a relic of old game design that does not hold well up at all. Not at all. So I'm going to put it in D. The Last of Us. This is where I'm gonna get the hot take. All right, you ready for a hot take? It's more of a horror game than Stalker is, I think. On it, like genuinely, I honestly think that. It's a C. Last of Us is a C, dude. The horror's more overt. The gameplay is very fun and fluid. The first time. I've only beaten The Last of Us twice. And the second time was showing a girlfriend The Last of Us. And if I never had a girlfriend to show The Last of Us, I literally never would have played the game again. The Last of Us is a fine game. But when was the last time you played The Last of Us again? Hades, I'm talking to you specifically. When was the last time you played The Last of Us a second time? The Walking Dead games. That's fair. I think the gameplay of The Last of Us it's like, it's fine. It's good, it's fine. I give the game itself a 6 out of 10. The story is a 10 out of 10. The story's a 10. But I'm putting it in the C category. All right. Resident Evil 7. Nope, it's not an A. It's a B. Resident Evil 7 is a solid B. It's a game you play once or twice. The DLC, despite as shitty as it is, like, having to buy DLC to, like, add replay value, the DLC that you get out of Resident Evil 7 is worthy enough, I think, to bump it up to a solid B. I've beaten Resident Evil 7 twice, I think. Maybe 3 times. 3 times with this last video. 3 times total. The DLC that you can get is great. There's a blackjack mode that you play with like Lucas captures. I think it's Clancy. Yeah, Clancy. From like the demo. And tortures Clancy with like a weird fucking fucked up blackjack game. That's a majority of the hours I have in Resident Evil 7, which are, let's find out, about 60 hours. I'm going to say a good 20 to 24 hours of those games are in the blackjack mode. It's great. Yeah. I think Resident Evil 7's biggest issue is that it relies on DLC for replay value. And my newest video kind of sort of goes into that. It doesn't really touch on the DLC much, but it touches on the replay value inherently built into the game. 100%. That's what the whole video is about. I have no more water. That's fine. Alright. The OG Alone in the Dark. It's definitely not an S. It ain't touching these two fucking masterpieces. It's a rough OG. You know what? Here, wait a second. Before, it's not fair. I'm coming back to Alone in the Dark. Alien Isolation. One of the scariest games you can ever play. Genuinely, I genuinely think it's like actually scary. C. It's a solid C. And it's because the game's too fucking long. Who do you know that has ever played this game, has actually beaten it, and then wanted to play it again after that? The game is just way too fucking long. If it was a 10-hour game, it would probably be an A. I'm also just not the biggest fan of, like, having to hide. As a horror mechanic, it's not what I'm kind of play the horror genre for. But, oh, you think it's underrated? Oh, hot opinion. I got a hot opinion. Or you have a hot opinion. I don't know. I inherently don't really like games that force you to hide very much. Spoiler alert. But I have a... Like, as much as painful as it may be for me to put Alien Isolation in the C rank, I have a fuck ton of respect for this game, and it's because it brought combat back to the mainstream in terms of horror. You've replayed it many, many times. I love it, love it, love it, love it. Length is a plus for me. Not sure why the long game is a critique. You can save the game and resume it later instead of beat it in one go. That's how you beat a lot of games. But I just think the game plays out all of its cards too soon. And even then, it's kind of drawn out in terms of, like, adding on to itself. So I just don't think that, like, the length helped personally in terms of my enjoyment of the game. No matter what I say bad about Alien Isolation, in terms of respect, it's up here. In terms of respect, almost. No, it's not up there. In terms of respect, it's in an A rank in terms of respect. But as far as, like, wanting to play the game, enjoying the game, it's a C. Yes, that's my point. I'm making a number up, but I think Alien Isolation has, like, 7 mechanics that it stretches to 20 hours. And I feel like it would have been a lot more condensed and enjoyable if it was just 10, 12 even. But that's why I'm putting Alien Isolation in C. Obviously, I understand why people really, really like it. I just don't think the hide and seek mechanic is all that great, or that engaging. You 100%ed Alien Isolation. Jesus Christ, my guy, dude. that was a respect face. I couldn't have done that. Okay, we're getting. All right, let's get a joke one out of the way. Deadly Premonition. It's a D. I made fun of Alan Wake for copying Twin Peaks. Deadly Premonition is blatantly being Twin Peaks. It might as well have ripped Twin Peaks' skin off and wore it on this fucking person's face on the cover, for all I care. But at least it was, like, funny. Alan Wake isn't funny. And Alan Wake takes itself very seriously. When Deadly Premonition does not. Which, in my opinion, gives Deadly Premonition the leeway to be that objectively, like... that blatantly obvious in its influence. Yeah, it's a lot. Deadly Premonition is a wild ass fucking game, and I would not recommend it to nearly anybody. So it's going into D. Resident Evil Outbreak is going into the... This is going to be a hot opinion, but I'm putting it into D, and I'm going to give... Where is it? Outbreak 2 is also going into D, and you want to know why? Because that game lives and breathes on multiplayer. Does Alan Wake ever go to sleep? Yes, he does, actually. He does. He does. I'll get to that. Outbreak 1 and 2 are going into the D category, and it's because unless you mod your PS2 or you play a pirated copy on an emulator or whatever, I don't know what it takes for you to play online, but that game is built around you playing the fucking game online, and you can't do that anymore. And if you just play the game alone, it's pretty what the fuck ever. You can't play that game online anymore if you have the copy, which I do. It's at my parents' house. I don't have it with me here. Excuse me. So I feel like, in terms of playing the game objectively now, it goes into D, because all you can play it is you can only play it in single player, and in single player, Outbreak ain't that great. And Alan Sleep come in 2025. Heed my word. Okay. What's next? What should we do next? Rule of Rose. One of the most controversial releases on the PS2 because of people not investigating the game correctly. It's a C. The person that I showed Last of Us to is also the same person that let me play Rule of Rose. And I think the game does so much right, but also, like, even as, like, a horror game where the controls are supposed to be kind of finicky and kind of, like, secrets out sort of shit in terms of, like, its design, even on that level, Rule of Rose is pretty bad. But it does a lot right that I think puts it above game. Like, I would... Oh, actually, I don't know. Thinking about it. Oh, I don't know. Rule of Rose's gameplay is so awful. The gameplay of Rule of Rose is atrocious. Do I want to leave it on the same category as The Last of Us? The game is not scary. It's unsettling. It's disturbing, but it is definitely not scary. I'm moving Rule of Rose to a D. I'm sorry. The gameplay's atrocious, borderline atrocious. If you were to, like, take a rank of, like, acceptable to passable, and then, like, another one from passable to atrocious, Rule of Rose is, like, right here. It's really fucking close in terms of gameplay. Do you remember... Okay, so it's been about 6 years since I played Rule of Rose. There was specifically a boss that had to do something with, like, a dolphin or, like, a whale. And they were, like, they were positioning themselves, like, all around this room. And you had to, like, hit him with, like, a stick or something. And they kept, like, rearranging their fucking position all over the place. That was the first... Like, oh my god, that boss is so awful. So awful. Actual bad. I almost turned the game off. I almost stopped playing right there. I need to get some ones that I know for sure out of the way. I've played Siren. I don't have a lot of experience in Siren because, as I said, it keeps crashing. I might as well put it into the haven't played category. Honestly, might as well put it into that category. I've played maybe about 20 minutes of it. Oh, don't be sorry, dude. Don't be sorry. You're fine. I'm just gonna put Siren into the not played category. I barely played it. I would love to. Also, where the fuck is Manhunt on this list? Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem on the GameCube has one of the best jump scares in any video game ever made. It's going into the B category. It's a super unique horror game that I wish a couple more horror games kind of like did mechanics based around of. The sanity mechanic is so genius that it's genuinely shocking that only this game, when you think of a sanity mechanic, comes to your mind. It's so good, and yet it's so dated in terms of what it presents to you as like a sanity thing, that if even one game recently came out that even remotely used this mechanic, it would be a goddamn fucking masterpiece. It's a B. It's a solid B. I think almost objectively it's a B. Outlast. The game ain't scary. BSOD jump scare? I don't know what that is. It's probably bad. Outlast. It's not scary, and it uses hiding as a central mechanic for the entire game. It's a D. I'm sorry. If you like games that where you're constantly just like, hiding from people, that's fine. It's just kind of boring. Why not an A? I think it's because I haven't put a game into the A category. Let me put a game into the A category. Silent Hill 3 is an A. Oh, the blue screen of death. Silent Hill 3 is an A. And let me explain why Silent Hill 3 is an A. It's the third best Team Silent game. It might be the second best. I have a really soft spot for Silent Hill 4. But Silent Hill 3 is everything that Silent Hill 2 did in terms of horror, but perfected. Outlast is just amnesia with slender camcorder idea. Silent Hill 3 is probably the quintessential A ranking survival horror game. It doesn't hit as hard as Silent Hill 2 in my opinion, but it also is scarier than Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 3, I think the first time I played it made me almost shit my pants. Silent Hill 2 did not make me almost shit my pants. Silent Hill 3 might be one of the scariest games ever made. It's almost a perfected version of Silent Hill 2, except for in every aspect except its story. Almost. Silent Hill 3 is so good that it made me understand what it's like to be a woman being predatorized by men. That's how good Silent Hill 3 is. There's a part in Silent Hill 3 where you are exploring one of the hospitals in the town, and there's a man that is like writing letters to you, that are like telling you how much he loves you and how much he's forcing himself upon you. And that was the first time in my life that it made me kind of like empathize what women go through, I'm sure a lot of the time. And for that game to do that in a horror setting genuinely fucked with my head. Silent Hill 3 is goddamn amazing. I think it's the scariest of the original four. Silent Hill 4 I think beats it in terms of just being like unsettling, but Silent Hill 3 is that's the thing about the original 4 Silent Hill games. Every single one of them is unique, has their own quirks, and are scary in their own ways. Yes. Yeah, exactly. The dude with the doll. I think what's his name? I want to say Connor. I know that's not it. Stanley. His name is Stanley. That dude's that whole scene, and then you find out that his body is in the morgue in the hospital. Someone calls you and tells you that guy who's been writing you letters, his body is in the morgue. His name is number 7 now, or some shit. He gives you a number, and you're like, that's fucking weird. And then there's a puzzle where you have to go into the morgue and solve numbers based on the fucking bodies in the morgue. And then you go up to Stanley's number and he goes, oh, and you're like, ah, fuck that, dude. That game is fucking amazing. The game is so good. Oh my god. Silent Hill 3's a quintessential. It's an almost S. I'm moving it up. It's an almost S. Silent Hill 3 is so good. I think, on that note, I think a quintessential B. Where did it go? A quintessential B horror game is Resident Evil 0. There was a long time where I had not beaten Resident Evil 0, but I had beaten the remake, 1,000 times. But the quirks of Resident Evil 0 kind of stirred me away from it a little bit for a very, very long time. Busted a nut, yeah. But the quirks of Resident Evil 0 kind of steered me away from it for a very long time. But there, about a year or two ago, I sat down and just beat the game. And for a very long time, I was hoping for, like Capcom to come back to the fixed camera kind of horror element that, like, the OG series did. And I want to say the summer before 7 came out, or the remake of 2 came out, so probably around October of 2018, I beat Resident Evil 0. And I got to experience a new, old-school survival horror Resident Evil game again. As if it was new, almost. And it stands up really, really, really good. You really didn't enjoy it. None of the Resident Evil stories are good. 7's the best one, and that's pretty bad. But, I mean, like, as a game, as, like, an OG survival horror game, there's not a game in the franchise that, like, stands as solid in terms of feeling new that Resident Evil 0 does. Like I said, Resident Evil 0 is, like, Resident Evil Survivor's the best. The one on the PS1? Where is it? Is it on this list? No, thank God. No, it's bad. You should feel bad. If Dead Aim was on here, I would at least give it a D. I might put Dead Aim on the PS2 as a C. The OG Resident Evil has not aged well. But at the same time, it hasn't aged at all. Like, I mean, the same game that I put in the S rank is basically the same game that Resident Evil is. Like, for the most part, gameplay-wise, it's the same game. It's just, I mean, like, Resident Evil Remake just did it so much fucking better. The only Barry. It also has Barry, who has, was nerfed a little bit for the, like, the speedrun purists of the remake, but OG Barry is kind of where it's at. But I don't think it really belongs anywhere other than C. You know what? It's a B. It laid the foundation for literally every game that has been above it, in the same tier, and below it. Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's an A. It's not an almost S. It's an A. It's a quality product. Resident Evil 2 might be the quintessential A. I take it back. I thought Silent Hill 3 was. Resident Evil 2 might be the quintessential A. It's almost a perfect game, but it just doesn't flow well enough. Exactly. I don't think Resident Evil 2 Remake flows well enough to be anything more than an A, which is a lot already. Resident Evil 2 Remake is fucking fantastic, and it would probably actually be an almost S if my computer could run it efficiently. My computer can't run it efficiently at the setting I want it to be to play it all the time. Also, yes, it doesn't have the A-B scenarios, which is kind of a shit show. But whatever. I think, just as a game itself, Resident Evil 2 Remake is an A. Cold Fear is a... This is a so bad it's good C. this is a comically bad game, but like competent enough that like this is like the Room of video game. No, it's not. It's competent enough that it's playable, but it also somehow magically makes it bad enough to be, but like there's enough comedic material to like enjoy it for being bad. But it's also competent. But that's as best as it ever is, which is competent. I don't think Cold Fear is good, great, but it's not bad. Which means it's forgettable, which is kind of what the C tier's for. It's like, meh. Cold Fear's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, meh. Cold Fear The Room. You know what game is The Room? Where is it? I think I saw it on here. Here it is. Carrier. I don't know if you have played Carrier or not, but this game is fucking hysterical. If you have a Dreamcast... Wait. Shut your fucking mouth. If you have a Dreamcast, get this game. It's amazing. It's bad. It's not good, but it's hilarious. There's a point in this game where you walk in on someone who's essentially blown their fucking head off, and you walk up to this person and you're like, "Hey, are you okay?" It's fucking great. I love it. It's amazing. Get Carrier if you haven't played it. I think Fear is a solid B. It's not really a horror game. I mean, it technically is. It's whatever as a horror game. It's more of a shooter than anything, obviously. It's a very focused action first-person shooter. I do have a long list of games to play, Pat. I do. A lot of these are not good already. Like, I know Fear as a shooter in and of itself is very, very, very good. I played through Fear, I think, 3 times. It holds up. It's shockingly modern. All of the mechanics feel very good, very fluid, very fun, very enjoyable, and the slow-mo mechanic is literally never not fun. How often can you take a one-note mechanic and make it fun for an entire 12-hour-long game? You look at Fear and it tells you how to do it. Fear's amazing. It shouldn't be as good as it is. Also, why is Fear 2 not on this list? I have a lot to say about Fear 2. A lot of people don't like Fear 2. I think Fear 2 is almost as good, if not better, than the first one. Doom 3. It's a solid B. Doom 3 is a good shooter. It's also a very good horror game. One of the few times that when I was younger that actually made me freeze from fear, call my parents and say, "This game is scaring the shit out of me." Doom 3 is very good. And if you don't like Doom 3, because it's not like Doom, you can go fuck yourself. Doom 3 is its own thing, which is fine, and it's good, and it does it really, really, really well. Why would they make a remake so different from the original? So you can experience a game that you love for the first time again. Doom 3 is a horror game. Doom 3 is a horror game. It's very moody, it's very dark, it's very suspenseful, and also money, yes. I need water. I don't know if you can tell, but my voice is like fucking shitting out on itself. I'll be right back. Oh my god. Dead Space. Where's Dead Space? I know I saw it. OG Dead Space is a solid B. A lot of people called it the return of survival horror, even though it had only been really gone for like a year. Yeah, no, I genuinely think Resident Evil 2 Original is better than the remake, but I mean, they're both excellent. I'm not, comparing apples to oranges. Love Dead Space. Dude, Dead Space is so good. It's not a game that I return to a lot of the time, but I mean, there was a brief period where like horror in video games literally died. Like, nobody was making horror games. Not even indie developers are making horror games. And then Dead Space came along and was like, hey, y'all, remember horror games? Remember being scared? You remember that fucking era of like 3 years back? And people were like, whoa, horror games, whoa. And then they just kind of didn't come back until Outlast. Outlast and the OG Slender kind of brought horror back into the mainstream in terms of video games. But I think Dead Space as a game is very fun. I don't think it's very scary, but it implies a lot. And the people that made the game live like almost down the street from where I live, so homie shout out, they that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that they live like 10 minutes away from my house, or they worked 10 minutes away from my house. Left 4 Dead, OG Left 4 Dead. This is a game that you play with friends. This is a game that is meant to play with friends. I didn't have friends to play this game with, so I'm going to put it in C, but I understand that it's objectively better than that. I just have no experience playing this game with anybody. And by yourself, it's not that fun. Same with Left 4 Dead 2. I just don't have anybody to play it with, or didn't have, and it wasn't very fun as a single player game. It just wasn't fun. Alan Wake is a horror-themed game. It's a horror game. Like, I would consider Left 4 Dead to be technically, like, a horror game, but, like Alan Wake is just kind of whatever. It has a horror theme, so I guess someone decided it necessary to put it on this list. This is someone else's, category. Those, I'm going to put them in C. I understand that they're better than C when you're playing with them with friends. They're a lot more fun. They're a lot more engaging, but, I have no experience playing them with people. So I think objectively, at least as far as I'm concerned, they're C. Resident Evil 5. I'm going to put in C as well. Almost the same exact thing with Left 4 Dead. Resident Evil 5 is so much better playing with another person that playing it by yourself is almost not the same game. But that being said, I did play it by myself, and it does hold up very, 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 very well as a single player game. That's the one difference between Left 4 Dead and Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 5 is a good single player game as well as a co-op game. Left 4 Dead isn't a single player game really, but as a single player game it's fine. As a multiplayer game it's good. Resident Evil 5 I think is a solid C, nothing more, nothing less. I have no problem with Resident Evil 5 but fuck it for deterring away from the horror aspect even further than 4 did. Condemned. Criminal Origin. Kind of the unsung hero of horror games from... Yeah, you also QTE a boulder, and it was great. Resident Evil 5 is borderline The Room, but it's not. Condemned is kind of like the unsung hero of 2000... late 2000s horror games. Kind of, barely successful enough to make a sequel, which is it on this list? It is. I'm gonna put Condemned in B. It's super fucking visceral. It's one of the most violent games in terms of just not necessarily of actual violence, but in terms of just in terms of a game feeling violent. Condemned and Manhunt are one of the most violent games that have ever been made. The whole game, just you feel like you're wading through the city's shit. There's never a moment where you feel clean. There's hardly ever a moment where you feel safe. You feel like you're being watched at all times. Condemned is like I said, it's not actually one of the most objectively violent games ever made, but it feels way more violent than it is. And I think that stands for something in terms of atmosphere. It's also very atmospheric. The game fucks with your head a lot of times. I love Condemned. It's really, really, really good. Condemned 2 is not as good. It's a C. It's a lot more action-oriented. Yes, Hades. Condemned does have the scene. They're constantly shifting. You turn around, they like move around you and shit. It's in the mall. It's in an abandoned mall, I believe. It's very effective. The OG Condemned is very good. Condemned 2 is fine. And like I said earlier, it's very action-focused for some reason. I think in the OG Condemned, you get a gun with a full clip in it maybe 7 times the entire game. In Condemned 2, you're constantly shifting through weapons that have clips, and you're just reloading all the time. It's a lot more action-focused, which is fine. You know, like, it's a good game. I just don't think it's as good as the first one. Here's a little bit of a Silent Hill Shattered Memories. the one Silent Hill game. I really don't know where to put this. This is pretty tough. This one's actually kind of tough. I'm gonna put it in B. I think Shattered Memories. It's not even a hot take to say that it's probably the best post Team Silent game. Putting in C. It's probably the best post Team Silent game. It has a lot of the elements that people like about Silent Hill. It's got the weird kind of like hallucinogenic story. It feels wrong. It's got a lot of like ambient exploration, which is what a lot of people like. It's what I like about Silent Hill. 2 things: it's not scary at all, and 3 things. 2, in conjunction with the first thing, you're running. As a side, I don't like running. I've been over this already. I don't like having to hide and run from enemies. But you never felt in danger when there wasn't ice around. So a lot of the ambient exploration in the original games was like entangled with the feeling of danger. Excuse me, sorry. But in Shattered Memories, there's literally no danger whenever there is not ice surrounding you. So that was a big knock. Third, the oh god, I forgot what I was gonna say now. God damn it. Oh, the overtness of the psychological mechanics were a little bit of a turnoff. Even though they were interesting, they just kind of oh, you're playing a horror game. Now we're gonna do a psych test on you, and it just kind of felt like really weird, like left and right brain. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of a little weird. Overall, though, I think Silent Hill Shattered Memories is good. I genuinely think it's a pretty good game. Also, I forgot to turn this on. Resident Evil 6. Ooh, the big boy, the big demon of the Resident Evil franchise. No one likes it. It's a D. That's not a D. I distinctly remember being hyped as fuck for this game. And Capcom was releasing a game called Dragon's Dogma. And they were releasing a demo for Resident Evil 6 alongside the release of Dragon's Dogma. If you pre-ordered Dragon's Dogma, you got a free demo for Resident Evil 6, which included 2 levels, more or less. And I told my brother, who was really excited, that I was going to chip in half to pre-order Dragon's Dogma if he just let me play Resident Evil 6 demo the day of. And he was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I'll pay $30 for a video game I want to get. Yeah, no problem. No big deal. I played 30 minutes of this demo and then said, I don't want to buy this game. That's how bad Resident Evil 6 is. That being said, I think Resident Evil 6 might actually be the room of video games. It's so bad, it's hilarious. But it's a D. I think it's a solid D. Nothing better. Definitely not worse than a D, but it ain't much better than that. The OG Alone in the Dark, I think, is a C. I mean, like, it's old as dirt. And in the same sense that, like, Resident Evil 1 on the PS1 kind of laid the foundations for literally almost every single game on this list that we're talking about, Alone in the Dark paved that. So I think it deserves at least a little bit of respect. I don't think Alone in the Dark holds up well at all. You have to use the arrow keys on your keyboard to move your character. Like, are you kidding me? But it's an historical fucking video game in a franchise, in a genre that means a whole lot to me and I love dearly. So I can't be meaner to it than that. Pathologic is not a game for me. I'm putting it in the same one. It's in the same thing as Stalker. It's not a game for me. I don't think I can stomach a game like Pathologic. For as like slow and monotonous it is, I could honestly boot this game up just to be in the world of it and be content with it. The atmosphere of Pathologic is immaculate. And for a game as old as that is, that's kind of saying something. But I don't feel comfortable ranking it. And we're getting into some heavy ass hitters. Dead Rising is a C. Again, it's not really a horror game. I mean, it technically is. But I mean, it's fun. It's stupid, dumb, bullshit, arcade nonsense, monkey fun. I can't hate it. You grab fucking baseball bats off of mall walls and punt zombies in the head with baseballs that you find. It's stupid, but it's enjoyable. You take a go-kart and you fly off the second floor of a mall and land on like 10 zombies and crush them all. How can you hate that? You can't do it. You can't hate that. I have literally no issues with Dead Rising, apart from the fact that I don't really think it should be on this list as far as, like, other games that are explicitly trying to scare you. Apart from that, I have no issue with it. It's fun. It's a fun game. But I think a lot of these games are also fun. It's like, exactly. It's like a horror game like the Evil Dead or horror movies. Amnesia, The Dark Descent. I think this is almost another objective rating. I think it's objectively a B. It kickstarted, I think, at the bare minimum, 15 YouTuber careers, which is a testament to the game. Whether or not you agree with those people being popular or famous or not. The game's scary. I don't care who you are, the game's pretty scary. And as Hades said earlier, it was another forefront to bringing horror back into the mainstream. So I have to almost objectively acknowledge its existence as a positive one. Without Amnesia, I don't think we would have Resident Evil 2 Remake. I don't think we would have... Is that the most recent game on this list? We wouldn't have Resident Evil 7 the way it is now. Which wouldn't have given us Resident Evil 2 Remake, by the way. Yeah, no, Amnesia is a very, very important game. And it's good. It's a good game. I've enjoyed my time with it. I haven't beaten it, but I've gotten very close. I haven't beaten a lot of the games on this list, but I've gotten far enough in a lot of them to voice my opinion on them. I haven't beaten Amnesia, but it's very good. I think it's objectively a B. Does that sound fair? Alan Wake. I'm going to make the argument that Alan Wake fails as a horror game. I've made a video on this. I don't think Alan Wake is a good horror game. I don't think Alan Wake is a good narrative game. And I don't think Alan Wake is a very enjoyable shooter that much. I mean, it's fun. The shooting's fine. It's... Okay, I take that third point back. It's not a good horror game, and it's not a very good narrative game. And Alan Wake kind of hinges its entire existence on being a narrative-driven game. I don't think it's very good at it. I'm going to put it in D. I have literally no intention of ever playing this game again. It does a lot of things right. I think the flashlight mechanic, in case anybody doesn't know, Alan Wake is a third-person shooter in which you can't kill the monsters in the game unless you shine your flashlight on them first and kind of like lower their defenses. In which case you can shoot them and kill them, blah blah blah. It's a good like tandem kind of mechanic with shooting. But I think almost everything around that mechanic is kind of bad. I think it's a D. Sorry. The Evil Within. Shinji Mikami, the legendary developer on the Resident Evil remakes, return to survival horror is a C at best. At best. A lot of people were like, oh, but Shinji Mikami, the legendary developer of Resident Evil remake and the original couple Resident Evil games, he's coming back to do a horror game. What is he gonna do? The man's making the return of survival horror, and then he comes out and he's like, and then everyone's like, oh, it's not the return of survival horror, it's Resident Evil 4 2. And then I played it, and I was like, oh, this is a bad Resident Evil 4. But even a bad Resident Evil 4 is pretty good. So, it's a C. The first half of The Evil Within is genuinely great, and then I can't tell you how bad it nosedives right after the halfway point. Like, if the game stopped at the halfway point, it would be a B. But then it just like, poof, it just launches like a nuclear bomb into the C range. It's unbelievable how bad the game turns around the halfway point. Dino Crisis, I feel is like a good one to go with next. Excuse me. If you want like a classic horror game, it's a B. But even then, it's not really a B. It's like a B minus. I'm gonna put it in the C. It's the highest. I'm putting it all the way up here. Dino Crisis is a solid C. Might be the biggest C plus on this list so far. It has all of the elements that you know and love, hopefully love, from games like the OG Resident Evil series or like old school survival horror. It's got the fixed cameras, it's got kind of like, that claustrophobic setting, it's got puzzles, it's got a whole bunch of shit. It just feels loose. And for a game to be as kind of clunky as the for the survival horror games are kind of clunky by nature. But the thing is that like when a game is designed to be clunky, everything around it is also kind of clunky to kind of like compensate to make everything kind of like flatlined in terms of what the player experiences. So if like the controls are clunky, the enemies are built around the controls being weird, which means you're at a fair advantage to the enemies, right? Like if you play Resident Evil Remake specifically, because that's the one I'm really good at, if you play Resident Evil Remake for the first time, you're going to have a really hard time dodging the zombies because the controls are clunky. But if you know what you're doing, you can dodge every zombie in the game without shooting a goddamn bullet for like the first hour and a half. Because the zombies are also clunky. Dino Crisis is very, very, very tight in terms of enemy design, but clunky in terms of the controls. I don't think the two mesh very well. You can make the controls be weird if you make everything around it also kind of weird. Case in point being Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is a goddamn masterpiece. And I don't know how they did it. The controls are... So here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize people that like go on YouTube looking for horror stuff know what I'm about to say. They know what I'm about to say is true, because it is. Resident Evil 4, a lot of people don't realize that Resident Evil 4 uses the same control scheme that everybody hated in the first couple Resident Evil games. Resident Evil 4 uses tank controls. It uses the exact same format that everybody hated originally, but they just made the camera different, which made it feel different. Resident Evil 4 is such a landmark in terms of gaming that it's still being re-released and still selling like goddamn cinnamon rolls at a Cinnabon. It's unreal. Dead Space is Resident Evil 4, but more fluid, more engaging, more actiony, right? Dead Space uses a mechanic where you have to shoot the limbs off of stuff in order to kill the monsters. And it uses the same mechanic that Resident Evil 4 does, which is the over-the-shoulder... I can't really... Over-the-shoulder, aiming mechanic, whatever. Dead Space, you can move, aim, and shoot all at the same time. You can, it uses the same over-the-shoulder mechanic that Resident Evil 4 does, but you can also aim, move, shoot, all at the same time. And a lot of people, myself included, think that's a good thing. Water. I genuinely think that what Dead Space did is a good thing. Resident Evil 4 uses the over-the-shoulder thing. Resident Evil 4 invented the over-the-shoulder shooting mechanic. But you know what Resident Evil 4 did? Is that it made you go into seize tank mode every time you wanted to pull your gun out. So if you were running, you can't move, shoot, and aim all at the same time. You have to run, you have to stop, you have to pull your gun out, and then aim stationary, and then shoot stuff. But Resident Evil 4 secretly uses like a barrier around your main character. So if there's any enemy that's charging to you, once they hit this like invisible barrier, they stop running. So no matter what, all of the enemies are built around the fact that you can't aim and move and shoot all at the same time. That's what I mean when the clunky controls are... the world is built around the clunky controls. Because, like, if they incorporated what Dead Space did into Resident Evil 4, it wouldn't work, because all of the enemies are way more aggressive in Dead Space than they are in Resident Evil 4. And vice versa. If you incorporated the enemy mechanics from Resident Evil 4 into Dead Space, it also wouldn't work because of the fact that you can move, shoot, and aim all at the same time in Dead Space. If you put the Resident Evil 4 enemy mechanics in there, they would all stop once they hit a barrier. You would basically be invincible. You know what I mean? There's like a give and take in game design in the way that they make the games. And I think that's my best argument towards, or my best example of games being made around the mechanics they give you. If Lost in Vivo was not on this list, I would put Lost in Vivo as an A. Lost in Vivo is an A. But it's not on this list, so what the fuck. I'm gonna have to do another one of these with my list. My components that I made that there are no haven't playeds. OG Silent Hill, the big boy, the big one. The baby daddy of the franchise that makes me cry. It's a B. I think every game of the original 4 are better. All of the sequels of the original 4 are better than the OG Silent Hill game. That's not to knock the original literally in any way. You can't beat the story, you can't beat the horror, and you can't beat the weirdness of Silent Hill 4. 2 in 1, motherfucker. I just did 2 in 1. The original Silent Hill is as scary, I think, as you could be as far as the limitations of a PS1 were, in terms of like what you could do, I think Silent Hill 1 beat the limitations in any way that you could possibly like picture a game being made. Silent Hill 1 broke all of them and just kind of was just like, okay, well, you know, we'll do what the fuck we want. Fuck you. Well, you know, PS1 limitations, you go fuck yourself. We're gonna make goddamn one of the best horror games ever made, right? And then you take that mindset and then you give them the power of the PS2. And then you make a masterpiece like Silent Hill 2. You make almost a masterpiece like basically a masterpiece of Silent Hill 3. You make a goddamn experiment that still works to almost every benefit that you could possibly want in Silent Hill 4. Silent Hill laid the groundwork. It's, you know, it's on the same thing as Resident Evil. Like, you know, like all of the ones that came after Resident Evil, all the OG ones that came after the original Resident Evil, I think are better because it was a rocky groundwork. It was a more solid groundwork, but it was still pretty rocky because it was a whole new thing. Clock Tower 3. This might be the hardest one for me to rank. I'm going to come back to that one. Dead Space 2 is a C. I think it's a fair C. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a little bit, I guess, more fun than the first one, but the horror aspect is definitely kind of lowered. I feel like the second one's too long. I feel like as someone who like really enjoys you know, like, I don't know, I feel like Dead Space 2 is too long for its own good. I kind of got annoyed by it by the end. There's a part, I think I got really close and I just didn't want to play it anymore. But a majority of it is very good. But the fact that I couldn't bring myself to beat it kind of leads why I bring it as a C instead of up amongst the first one as a B. I just don't feel like beating it. It's a lot more visceral, it's a lot more action heavy, but it's also still a horror game, which is more than I can say about the third one, which I'm going to take out of haven't played and just give an F. Fuck the third game. It doesn't fucking belong on this list. It doesn't belong in the franchise. It can go fuck itself. Silent Hill Origins. I feel like this is another good one. This is a C. So a lot of people kind of shit on Silent Hill Origins. It almost feels like a real Silent Hill game. If you literally just took out, like, the infinite pocket mechanic, it would feel really close. The traversal thing where you're constantly switching between the normal and the other world is kind of whack. I don't hate it. I think Origins gets a lot more shit than it deserves, and I think a lot of it has to do with the story. The story can flat out disappear, I wouldn't care. Which is kind of a problem when it comes to a game like Silent Hill. The story's almost pointless. It's basically a remake of 2 in terms of story, and, you know, that ain't happening. There's no game that, as far as I can tell, there's no game that's hit as hard as 2. Except, I mean, maybe The Last of Us. The Last of Us' story is probably as good as Silent Hill 2. But nothing around it is as good as Silent Hill 2. But Origins, as a horror game, I think it's as close to the originals as can be. It still feels pretty close. The story's fucking trash. Fuck Origins story. It doesn't matter. The exploration is good. The monster design is pretty alright. I mean, like, it has all of the components that make the Silent Hill series, what we know as Silent Hill, to be, you know, it's all in there. It's just not done quite as well as it could have been. And, you know, the story. So, it's a C. I kind of like Origins. Cry of Fear, baby. One of the big ones. One of the big heavy hitters of the list. I would be remiss not to put this in a... As I said in my video comparing Cry of Fear and Gray, I was waiting for years for another introspective Silent Hill game. No, Silent Hill Origins did actually have QTEs. I forgot about that. Thank you. It's going into the D territory. No, I'm kidding. I was waiting for years for another introspective Silent Hill kind of game. And Cry of Fear had been sitting there for almost a decade. Just me not paying attention to it. Cry of Fear is fucking fantastic. The monster designs are the only thing I don't think that are good. Like, 80% of the monster designs are kind of trash. Cry of Fear is horrific. It's fucked up. The music's beautiful somehow. The storytelling is really good. It's subtle. It's also overt. It's shocking. It's also gory. It's shocking, gory. It's almost everything a horror fan could want. Almost no matter what kind of fan of horror you are. If you're the kind of like really gross, like disgusting, like, you know, American bloody gore horror fan, you're gonna find something to enjoy in Cry of Fear. If you're a more kind of subtle, like, you know, art house, for lack of a better phrase, art house horror fan that like I am, you're gonna find something to enjoy in Cry of Fear. Cry of Fear is fucking amazing. Almost S. Let's go. Cry of Fear deserves to be almost on the same level as Silent Hill 2. And it's free. Anybody watching, Pat? I'm talking to you. Cry of Fear. It's free. A game almost as good as my favorite piece of media ever made is free. I'm just saying. like, I'm not telling you specifically, Pat, to play this game, but like, if anybody's watching this later on my YouTube channel, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I should play Cry of Fear. Dude, it's fucking free. Just play the fucking thing. It's awesome. Anyway. OG Resident Evil 3. This may be a hot take. Get your hot take hats on. Wait. Hot take hat on. Here's my hot take hat. Resident Evil 3 is a C. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis is a solid C. It's not great. It's good, but it's not great. It's got Nemesis. There's a big guy that chases you a lot of the game. That's about all it's got going on with it. It's pretty alright. Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth is a D. It's really scary for about the first 3 hours, and then you got 12 hours of boring bullshit. It's not that fun. Clock Tower 3 is another C with a bunch of British bullshit where it's comically fucked up. And the last boss is so bad that I didn't beat it. It's got a lot of good ideas. You're also hiding, which is, you know, a knock for the game as far as I'm concerned. But, I mean, it's like, it has enough experimentation. It's got like enough good ideas to keep it, like, you know, engaging up, at least up until the last boss. In which case of exactly on the corners of the earth. Yeah. Clock Tower 3 is it's the okay. If Dino Crisis is the highest C on this list, Clock Tower 3 is the lowest C on this list. It's barely a C. We're talking about corners of the earth. We're talking Clock Tower is hanging on by a goddamn, like, you know, peak of the valley. Alone in the Dark, the 360 version for some reason, is an F. It's almost unplayable with a bunch of good ideas that they did not know how to execute. Fuck that game. It's bad. Revelations 2. It's a C. I should probably also put Revelations as a C. They're both fine. They're what I wanted when Resident Evil still wasn't horror again, which is a horror Resident Evil. And they brought it kind of sort of back to horror, but not. It doesn't know what its own identity is. It's fine. They're engaging, they're fun, but I mean, like, they're like, it's an in one ear out the other kind of Resident Evil game. I almost forgot that I've played them. Zombie U, which is also just Zombie now on Steam. It's a B. It satisfies. I think Cry of this is going to be a weird comparison. Cry of Fear and Zombie are very close in terms of being for everybody. Zombie U is a game that you don't need to be a fan of horror to enjoy. The controls are tight. It feels really good to play, but it's also actually kind of scary. It's like the Dark Souls of zombie games. Would recommend people play Zombie. Not enough people have played it. It's actually good. And if you don't like Dark Souls, it doesn't play anything like Dark Souls. Pat, you would probably actually maybe like Zombie. It doesn't play anything like Dark Souls. It just has a lot of the same mechanics of, you know, like, you die, you go pick your shit up. It's actually the Dark Souls of zombie games, and that's not a meme. We're not adding any more S's. I just want everybody to know that. Code Veronica X is a C. This is... I take it back. Dino Crisis is not the highest C on this list. Resident Evil Code Veronica X is. It's the highest C on this list. I take it back. Oh, fuck. I actually don't know where to put this one. This one's fucked up. Resident Evil Code Veronica has... There's so much to like about it, but it also somehow feels clunky, like it was like the first game that Capcom ever made in this format. At the same time, I don't know how they managed to do it. It's got Steve, who is, might I remind you, wait a second. He said I was sorry. He's the kind of guy that people who, like, make fun of when they think of, like, an anime protagonist. It's that guy. That's supposed to be scary. I can't! Are you kidding? It's a C. It's the highest C on the list. Where did it go? What happened to it? Where did it go? Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare. B. You want to talk about a game that a lot of people have played that like old school survival horror games? Play Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare. It's perfect. It's everything you want. It's even got a flashlight mechanic. It's basically Resident Evil 2 with a flashlight mechanic that works really well. It's fantastic. Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare is great. I love it. It also has two. It's Resident Evil. Yeah, completely forgot that it has two separate scenarios. Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare. Penumbra. Overture number 1, episode 1. It's a high C. Penumbra, the Black Plague. You know what? Black Plague is the first one. I'm gonna put this up here. Black Plague is really clunky because it forces combat. When you could tell the designers weren't really comfortable with making combat in the game, it's clunky as fuck. Like, I can't... I'm trying to think of a game that has clunkier combat than the Black Plague. Deadly Premonition has better combat than Penumbra the Black Plague. And Penumbra Overture is like the first game where you could see where, looking... With hindsight, as 2020, you could see that Penumbra Overture is what Amnesia was going to be. I think it deserves pretty high up on the list. And Fatal Frame 2, the last one on the list. I don't think ghost games are that scary, but I mean, it's a B. Everything about it's great. It's good. It's super solid. It's the first game, but better. It's the Resident Evil 2 of Fatal Frame games. So, there's my list. Just take it all in. These will be, hopefully, the fact that, okay, like, I found this list, I googled survival horror tier list. This dude, not to, like, blast this guy, he put the Saw games on here. Why? Why? Anyway, that's my stream. Walter, Hades, Pat, thank you for coming. I am going to probably install the Killing Floor 2. I'm going to have a good time later. It's been a lot. What I've been streaming for what, like almost 6 hours straight? I'm going to die.
Tomato is a fruit, but also a vegetable.